Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, we pull out the Ninebarks. Physocarpus opiofolius, if I'm saying that correctly, is the Ninebark. And I have an older Ninebark. This is my newer one. So let's show you the older one first before we get to work on this one. What I love about the Ninebarks is their peeling bark. They have kind of a peeling bark that reveals kind of a dark brown, reddish colored bark. So this one here I found at a big box store a couple years back, and I just couldn't pass it up because of the big solo trunk. Starting to get a little bit of flare down here with the roots. Now it's very tricky, the growth on old wood, but it does grow back on old wood. And I know that because of a branch like right here. So this little guy right here is growing on this old wood from earlier. Here's a cut from last year. And this is the old wood, and this is new growth right here. And then this back here is also new growth from this year. So it's had a tough time forming a lot of ramification down here at the bottom of this tree where it splits into the Y. But this tree I kind of partially defoliated just a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks, and we're getting some of the new growth right up here on the top. And if we get really close, we can see all kinds of buds that are coming in between here where all the old leaves were. So this guy right here, there's a bud right here, there's a bud right here, and a bud down here, and one trying right there. So it certainly is going to grow back with defoliation in the summer and have a little bit smaller leaves. Sometimes the leaves come out in a real amber color. We get some real different kind of reds and oranges and yellows. And then in the fall, some of the Ninebark do turn a yellow color, so it's really kind of nice. The leaves are a little bit big proportionally, but as we do work later with the refinement of this tree and cut back and defoliate, we'll get smaller leaves for round 2 in the growth season. And so this one has some original large leaves from earlier in the season, big ones. This is a pretty new one, it's pretty big as well. So a little bit more difficulty in getting these leaves smaller, but I've just really fallen in love with the chippy peeled bark look, and it's the color of the leaves throughout the year of different colors, so it's a very, very cool tree. So this one we're not going to work on today, but this is the result of doing some partial defoliation just a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of sprung this back to life. We're also ending that dormant season in the summer. We're now highs in the upper 70s and 80s for the next couple of weeks. This is going to be a really good time for our trees to start growing for this second or third push of the year. And so this is the monster that I trimmed back a little bit earlier in the year. And I left this branch as a sacrificial branch, and as you can see, it continues to grow out. And if we look at this leaf right here, we've got new leaves coming out at all of these inner nodes, more leaves that are coming out and ready to grow. So this could continue to grow to thicken this main trunk up. Now my fear is that this is going to thicken up this section of the trunk and not down here, but that's why I left all of this up here. So now it's got this branch growing up here now. This is fairly new growth. This season for sure. It might have been just a little bitty bud when it started, but it's growing well, and the wood is hardening off down here already for this season. So we're going to go ahead and give this thing its final trim of the year, and so it'll start to push out some new buds for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll go ahead and put it away for the winter and see what happens next year. So we're going to go ahead and give this thing a little bit of a trim today. So you're looking at the tree from the front right there. And a lot of peeling bark in here. It's almost like a paper birch. We've got this kind of paper-like bark that just peels right off. And then it has many layers, turns into that brown and some red colors. Super interesting bark. It's not that real textured bark we're used to on real old pines and maples and elms and all those kind of trees. So very unique tree indeed. So let's take a peek. Right here is a cut point from earlier this summer. I cut this guy right there. Right there. And very little dieback here, but look at how this one took off and became that new leader. So if I cut this back here, that's how we get our movement in our trees without any wires, right? And I just read a post from one of our Minnesota Bonsai Society members who posted an image of a tree that was all chopped up and looked nothing like a bonsai tree. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, because it's always good to remember that our trees are not going to be looking like bonsai trees from the get-go, especially early material from a nursery. We can make them look like a bonsai, then they're going to grow like crazy like this one is, and it's going to lose its shape and definition. But the bonsai tree, of course, is taking years and years to develop. So we're hoping this tree looks really good 5 to 10 years down the road. So I have to think about what I'm going to do with this tree now. So one of the problems with a lot of tree species, and I'm seeing it in this tree right now, well, it's a shrub really, but can grow for 6 to 10 feet tall. So these Ninebarks can get tall. But we have this branch right here that's growing up here, and look at how there's no taper from here to here. From way down here to way up here, there's no taper in this branch. And I don't want this tree to get ramified from up here. I want the tree to start ramifying down here eventually with the nice trunk, the split here, and then we get some ramification, and then we get our tree top. So this whole tree will be cut in half probably today, but maybe more because of that thick branch that's just not, it doesn't have much taper in it. And so we're gonna see where we can cut that guy off. So as I come out front to look at it with you, I've got this branch right here that feeds off of this branch right here. So I can cut it here, I could cut these two branches up here and make this the new branch leader, but it's still long, so this is thinner than this, but this is a really long section right here. And there's also a branch back here. So I know for sure that we're gonna cut that off. So that opens up that right there. But look, I still have a very long branch. There's not much foliage down here, so we're hoping for some back budding down the road. We can't get that back budding formed on many trees unless we get rid of the oxen at the tips of the trees and start spreading it down. So like here's an example of some new growth right here on fairly old wood. Not as old as this, but right here there's this little growth right here. And so I can cut all this back to here and let that grow. It's growing at a little bit of a funky angle. But we want to promote growth down here now for this last push of the year. And this is just all too big. So we got a little tree within itself right there. We're cutting all of that off. And now this isn't as desirable because it's growing up and over. But until we get some more back budding, maybe I leave this on for photosynthesis purposes. But it does cling with this guy. The other possibility too is I cut back to this branch back here, and I think that's what I'm going to do. Gets rid of that weird one growing back. And now we have this growth over here with this new growth right there. And we'll cut up to this leaf up here, and we'll let that do its thing. And we'll see. We'll hope to get some kind of back budding back down in here. And now we have this branch right here doing well off of this branch. So I cut that off. I can easily cut this down to here, but that grows into the tree. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it down to here. This tree has been loving its life where it's at. It's growing really well. I'm not afraid of it growing new growth. So these two are trimmed. Now they are crossing a little bit here, or want to cross, but I want to leave some of this foliage. I will cut off the tip here. There we go. Left with 3 leaves. 2 or 3 internodes there, and we'll see what happens with that guy. I let this grow out most of the summer. I am going to cut him back now to right there. And we'll let this guy do its thing, and we'll cut him back right there. Kind of a fun branch right here coming off this. We'll see what happens in the future with this guy. Got a little bit of brown tips on some of these leaves. I've had that on a couple of trees in my backyard this year, and I don't know if it's just a little burnout from a little dry spell, if it's any mold on there, but I'll just typically cut off all those leaves, and we'll just kind of see if that works at first. before I apply any kind of stuff to get rid of the mold. I don't like to use chemicals if I can avoid it. Here, if we can see, we got a little bit of that color right there. That's got a little bit of that reddish color in that leaf. Just a little bit going on there. It's mostly green this time of year, this year with this tree. I have had them really, really red in the spring, and then they can be really red in the second growth too, the second push. But right now we do have a lot of just green leaves. So again, this tree has such a interesting amount of versatility in its color patterns. Okay, so we've lost half the tree already, and we're not done. So this was the cut from before, and this is what grew as its leader. We've got kind of a mess here with 3 branches though, so we're gonna clean that up right now. This one grows right at us, so we're gonna cut that off. We've got a nice clean cut. That's kind of at a point that we cut before. So we'll have a little bit of a sore here, a little bit of an eyesore while it heals. But now we've got a split there. We're gonna cut this one back to this leaf right here. I wish it was on the outside, but for right now, we'll just leave it alone. And this guy's growing up and tall, but this new branch is going up and over. So we'll just cut that back one off. And we've got a Y there that we'll see what happens. We'll see what back budding might happen here, or how this grows up and splits apart. Now this one back here is competing. We'll cut the height off right there because we have a really lovely branch growing back here. It even splits nice up here, but we're gonna go ahead and go back to there. So as we kind of finish up this tree, it's a much smaller tree. We've cut back a lot of that tree branch that was just not getting any skinnier, right? We had no taper in there. So we're gonna hope for some back budding back down low. We have some low stuff right here. We'll hope this pushes back and see where this tree goes in the future. We might cut this one off eventually if this does grow nicely, if it has any bud backs here. So again, we have the movement on the tree and less straight up and down, because this has some nice natural movement right here. And I could cut that one off right now and keep that one, which would highlight this back here more if I cut this off right here. There we go. Never let it be said that I wasn't a little bold from time to time. A lot more bold than I used to be. All right. Yeah, that cleans it up a little bit more. And now we have this nice movement here. If this were to heal up nice, we've got some movement in the trunk, and this can become a real nice branch out here. So there we have the Ninebark. We got rid of over 80% of the branches on here. We've got the start of the second week in August. This will have the rest of August and September to continue to grow. We might even get growth into October, depending upon how the weather pattern is here in Minnesota. It was super hot all year. We got nice 80s for the rest of August forecasted for the last 2 to 3 weeks here. September rolls around, we've had 90s in September. There's a lot of time for this to continue to push out growth and get it set up for next spring. So we'll go put this back on the bench, we'll go put on the other one back on the bench, and we'll see what we have for updates today. My first update is less of an update and more of a quick little trim, but the update is that my Red Twig Dogwood passed away this year, did not make it. It's in the Bonsai graveyard. So earlier this spring, I've got some video clips of it here for you. But first up, the Red Twig Dogwood. Now driving in this beautiful weather these last few days when it's been 40s and sunshine, the snow is melting, the Red Twig Dogwoods just start to glow their red trunks. There we go. Cleanly out of there. I don't know if I'm going to put it back in the same pot or not. There's my square root pattern, right? Wow. Yeah, we got some roots here. All the way out to the edge. There's some roots right here. Look at that. They're starting to grow around the pot though. You see that? We don't want them to grow around the pot for too long because then they just keep long and spindly. So the sun is certainly shining on this thing nice and brightly. You can see this root that I've exposed. There's all these little roots. There's that big curly root right there. Probably cut this thing right at that junction. Let it grow down more than out and around. Hard to see though, much closer than those shiny ones. This is still a lot of potential dirt in here. It's really dark in color, as you can see. And there's a lot of fine roots in there. There's still more. They can see all this kind of stuff coming off. I'm breaking a few roots because they're just so compact in there. And I'm going to bring this over to that side. Bring this here. Do a hand twist first. And before I cut, let me look at my tree. I'm okay with that. All right. We got that nice and watered. So I have some sphagnum moss all broken up last fall. And I'm going to go ahead and put on there. Alright, so that's watered through and through, seeping out the bottom, and there we have right there, we have our Red Twig Dogwood. But there's going to be growth back here, so I'm just going to leave them go for the rest of this moment here, and we'll see how it starts to back bud here as we get into spring. So that's all I'm going to do. There we go. We have the Red Twig Dogwood. And I was super excited with this black pot and the red twigs, and I got it all transplanted, repotted, and it didn't make it. It struggled this spring, and it was one of the trees this year that left. Now, I do have 2 cuttings from that tree. So these are descendants from that tree, and we're gonna go ahead and just make final cuts on these 2 for the year. So this was the first one that I cut from that tree, and I've already made 1 clip to this year, but it's growing super nice, but it's growing super nice up tall, right? I got this nice branch down here forming for a primary branch. The tree splits then up here, but you'll notice this growth down here. We got growth down there that I don't want. That's just going to bulge everything out, because I got this split into a Y right here. And then it splits into a Y nicely here, and then it splits into a Y here, but there's actually 3. So let me just take away the one that's growing towards us. Me, because you're not looking this direction right now. There. Right there, that was growing towards us, and that is the front of the tree. So now I've got this nice split here, and there's one going in the back for some texture. So we'll just leave that alone. This one, we already cut off the 3, so that's okay. Clip off a couple of dead branches here. I am not sure I'm going to cut any more off of this one for right now. I'm just going to leave this one be. So I just wanted to get rid of that 3 branches from this spot so we don't get any unnecessary bulging. And we're going to let this thing just shoot out the rest of the year to thicken up this trunk even more. So that's the Red Twig Dogwood number 1. And then Red Twigged Dogwood number 2 has got a couple of suckers growing down here. So we're going to cut that one right off. These are a bush, these are a shrub. They want to grow low and spread out wide, so getting a single trunk like this has actually been pretty good for me, and I've had no other suckers grow on this one, which is amazing. So this one's growing more like a tree, so we're making a shrub turn into a tree. And you'll see this one has grown up like crazy. This is still just in a nursery pot that I had left over, a cutting that's doing really well. But you'll notice it's split right here. This is all new growth this year. And this one is almost as thick as the growth from last year, which is back here. But then also this is shot up here since the last time I looked at it, and it's growing from the same exact space. So I'm going to cut that one off right there. I'm going to cut this little section down here off because we had 4 in that area, and then a little bud right there. So now we have this super nice little Y split of a tree. I think for the rest of this year I'll keep that here. Whether I cut this part off someday and have that nice little movement. So where these two split right here, I could cut this one off so it's not so stick straight and grows up that way. I could do that in the future. But I'm not going to worry about that quite yet. Up top here now, I've got this section over here that's got big new growth, and this is the original growth right here. That's 3 branches growing from the same spot. So I have to decide where that's going to go. So directional pruning at its finest right here. Do we want to grow this one and this one to move it more this way? Do I cut out the middle one to have it split more here, like it's split down here? This one in the back has split already into 2 back here, right there. The bottom really needs to get thicker because these trunks right here are going to outpace this down here. So I got to get rid of some of this top growth here. I think this one just bends way too far out and it doesn't go up as nice. It's just too drastic of a change. So I'm going to cut that one off. And though I like the split on this one, I love the split on this one a little higher, and it makes the tree move this way a little bit more. And if we are going to keep this branch, I'd want to maybe get rid of this side to have it more less confusion in the middle. But that branch has a weird, this one crosses the front in a really, really interesting, bizarre way. I don't know that I want to keep it that way. So where these two come into play here, there's kind of a bulge already. I would want to maybe cut the stick straight one off and go with this one and let this become the new leader, and then we could plant it at an angle when we get into a bonsai pot. But I don't think I'll make that drastic of a decision today. I think I'm just going to go ahead and cut off this branch. There we go. Clean that up a little bit. All right. So depending upon which of these 2 main trunks we keep, if not both, we'll let these just continue to grow up and just get more thickness and girth. I'm going to cut this one right here to keep these 2 more in balance. These 2 are fine. That's all I'm going to do. Just a little touch up. So I lost my Red Twig Dogwood, my original, but I'm left with 2 descendants from that tree, and here they are. And this one is doing quite nicely, thickening up nicely. This one's coming around too. We'll put it maybe in a bonsai pot sometime next spring. We'll see how they fare through the winter and the critter issues I've had. So they are the Red Twig Dogwoods. So my last update for today is my Japanese maple that we did an air layer on about 2 months ago. I'm not sure where we're at with it, but I'm going to go ahead and slowly and carefully open up this white basket here, this white pot. I'm going to cut open all the cellophane, and we're going to see if we have any roots wrapped around the soil, if they've grown enough. If it's not to a point where I think I want to cut it off, well then I'll just rewrap it up and we'll let it go the rest of this growing season. But I'm just dying to know if we have any roots after a couple of months. Many of the Japanese varieties do very, very well with air layers, propagation from cuttings, and so I'm very curious how this particular one is going to fare after these couple months. So I'm going to real gently cut through with one of my least sharp scissors, trimmers there. All right. A lot of bulging soil there. It's on very firmly. It was stapled on. So I'm gonna have to go around here and take a peek. Yeah, I got the staples back here. So let me see if I can shimmy out the staples. There's one, and there's two. Third one's giving me some trouble back here. I didn't want to lose that much dirt. I'm afraid we don't have a lot of roots if I've got this much movement. And we do not. So here's the cut point right here. And unfortunately, it looks like it healed over. Yeah, we've got a callus off here. Everything kind of healed up here, and we got no roots at the cut point. Now the tree is alive up there. It's getting nutrients. The leaves are growing. We got plenty of growth up top, but we had no roots develop there. So I would have to rescore this. I have to cut this off right now and see if we'd get some growth for next year. I don't think we're going to. We don't have enough time between now and when the cold weather hits to get some growth on that. So this was an unsuccessful attempt at air layering. A bit of disappointment for sure. Yeah, I don't know if it's worth putting some soil back around there and trying it again. There are 2 or 3 buds trying to push out right there in the tree. I also have a bud right here growing about 2 inches above these branches. I'm going to save these branches for a thread graft through this next year if I don't get a lot of new growth. So that is a little bit of a disappointment that we weren't able to get some roots there from that air layer. But we tried, it didn't work out. So now I can either leave the tree alone for the rest of the summer and let this bud grow out, and let this bud grow out. But we have enough foliage, I think, on the top of the tree. If I cut this off right now, I think I'm going to go ahead and give this a chop as we get into this final push of growing this season. So I'm going to get and cut that off, and I've got a couple more up here that I can chop, and we'll just let it go for there. Because the anticipated future of this tree was to chop it down here somewhere and then get some more growth and then thread graft with this guy. This one's going to swing around and it's going to hopefully be able to go through the tree here and do a thread graft through the trunk. So it's going to cut the top off anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and get my saw out, and I'm going to cut these branches off, and we'll let it go for the rest of summer. Here we go. We're just going to cut this branch off. One of the worst parts of cutting a tree this thick is the movement I'm getting down below. I don't want to disturb the roots down below. As best as I can, I want to preserve those, so I have to try to hold this tree really, really steady. Well, that certainly gets more light down to that bud. That's all I'll do for today. So we got the big branch. The air layer didn't take. Kind of a sad time. But we have the big branches here. We can get a thread graft through here. We can chop it next year. So my goal is I'm gonna get this into a pot in the spring, let all the growth shoot up, and then after that first growth hardens off, we'll go ahead and do our trunk chop. We'll do it then so we don't have as much sap going through the tree to create more problems. So we'll let it push out in April, May, June, and then at the end of June or so, we'll give this thing our chop where we want it to be. It's gonna be below this point. Now that I have this branch growing right here, we might be able to cut it back towards the cabin here, right at an angle there. We'll lose everything on top and we'll have this new branch right here. We also have a new branch growing right here. This one down here might grow up as well. It's a little close to this one, but maybe this one comes off. Maybe this one comes off after the thread graft, if that is successful. So time will tell, as always, with bonsai. So that's all we're gonna do with this tree right here. I could cut this one off, but I don't want to disturb the tree anymore. Cutting this off was a lot of stress on the roots down below with my shaking a little bit. So we'll leave these two stubs. Maybe we'll just get some more growth to increase the chance of more photosynthesis, to just keep thickening up the trunk and getting ready for new growth where these new buds are forming. So there is the Japanese maple. Well, that's all for this edition. You win some and you lose some with bonsai. A never-ending experiment in the works. Appreciate you watching. Hey, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you on the next show.